there is absolutely nothing more than I love than a good versus battle. So this could be Superman versus everything, basically. You could throw everything at Superman just to see how entertaining and how catastrophic that fight would be on a planetary scale. Imagine the sheer devastation, just living a normal day in Metropolis when Superman's fighting the Hulk or something like that, anyways. Let's just say Superman causes a lot of mess. And then, of course, there's, battles like the Galactic Empire versus the Federation, which is a very interesting battle because one is science and the other is kind of, in a way, space fantasy. And of course, it's also debated about why you can either beam a photon torpedo on board the Death Star or you can't. It is one of those sort of debated things that I find quite interesting. So anyways, when it comes to debates, we are today debating about the Warhammer 40k galaxy versus a race in my mind that is, quite frankly, quite perfect for the Warhammer 40k galaxy because of how powerful they are, how relentless, how remorseless, and just the thought of them entering this galaxy, what that could cause, what kind of catastrophic devastation on a unimaginable scale that would slightly, in a way, I feel, dim what already happens in the Warhammer 40k galaxy. In order to understand the Warhammer 40k galaxy, I do suggest looking up a good lore video about the various factions. I only have one video regarding the Imperium mishandling its mail. When it comes to Warhammer 40k, straight away I think of the Imperium because of how powerful they are, because of how numerous they are. They've got a really strong navy, they've got military forces of various different scales. So from Imperial Guard, who are technically like the modern day military soldier, just with las guns. And then of course you've got Space Marines, who are superhumans who fight in big massive battle armor, essentially. It's a very sort of brief description, but really to get a full scope on the Warhammer 40k galaxy, I do suggest looking at a lore video. So in the galaxy, you've also got other races vying for power as well. So the Imperium is besieged from the outside as well as being within besieged. So for example, you could be on one planet working and then suddenly it falls to the Great Devourer, and it's all because a gene stealer cult has taken root in that planet. Also, chaos cults as well are very active in the Imperium, sabotage and various other things. And of course, outside the Imperium's borders, which are not very secure because planets do fall under constant attack, you've got orcs, you've got Eldar, you've got Dark Eldar, who are both are basically space elves. One likes to wear leather and spikes, the other is more different, kind of in a way if you imagine Vulcans in a sense, wearing armor and various other things. Essentially, they're space elves. That's what I like to think of them as anyways. And then of course you've got Tau, who are technologically good, but also very small in terms of their empire and their size. And then you've got Tyranids as well, who are the Great Devourer coming from the Galactic Rim, just eating their way across the galaxy, looking for their next all-you-can-eat buffet. So essentially that summarizes the Warhammer 40k galaxy in a slightly simpler term, if you will. As for the contender that we have that's going to be entering this galaxy as well, they are basically a universal dominating race. Now, they have spread all across their universe, so in a sense that already sort of makes the galaxy of Warhammer 40k seem a little bit smaller because only one race so far has a sense of universe, and that is Tyranids. Everyone else, of course, does have an idea of other galaxies out there and so on, but they've not ventured out, whilst the Tyranids have. So basically this race, all they want to do is just conquer and exterminate as many life forms as possible that do not look like them. And that would be the Daleks. So From Doctor Who, they are the first alien to ever appear on Doctor Who, actually. So they are as old as the show itself. And over the time, the Daleks have changed a lot from their original form. However, what they are essentially people who confine themselves into battle tanks and now have to live and survive in those battle tanks. Originally, they were dependent on static electricity, which greatly diminished their galactic, universal dominating skills, essentially, their capability, anyways. But then they overcame that as well as the dependency on radiation. So they moved beyond that. And as they developed further on in stories, they became more powerful, overcoming even a simple flight of stairs. The original Dalek was very susceptible to firepower. However, bullets still maintain some sort of bounce off effect. There are a few episodes I can think of where someone with a machine gun firing at a Dalek, the bullets just simply bounced off. However, they were very susceptible to ballistic weapons and lasers and rockets and various other things. But as time progressed, the Time War came about, the Daleks then became what they are now, the most advanced version of the Dalek. And I suspect their later incarnation, if we get that, will be more advanced technologically. And essentially, the Daleks have now got this capability of overriding lock systems and hacking into systems very quickly as well. So, of course, also there is no need to keep people alive either, as we have seen in some of the more scarier episodes of Doctor Who, where, for example, in Doomsday, a scientist said they could get the information they needed from him, he could talk about it, but then they just simply say to him, we don't need you to speak, we will just extract it. So they surrounded him, put their suckers on his head, and also burnt him to a crisp, but at the same time extracted the necessary information they needed about the current human civilization that was on Earth, what it was like, what its state was, how modern it was, if there was any other races vying for power at the same time. And of course, that's when they became aware of the superstition of ghosts. And that is history for that episode. Anyways, now on to the battle itself. So, the setting for this battle is the Daleks have been conquering their way across the universe and have come across this galaxy, the Warhammer 40k galaxy. Now, obviously Terra is Earth, but we are just going to sort of play around a little bit with that sort of setting. So let's just say the Daleks, obviously they come from another planet, and Earth is, in this reality, different. It's not going to also be the same reality where there is the Doctor to interfere. So the Doctor will not be showing up to help the Warhammer 40k galaxy or Earth, as much as it is his favourite planet. However, I don't think he would agree with the ethos or ethics of the Imperium of Mankind. So anyways, the Daleks will first of all want to study this galaxy. So they will recognize and pick up through their scans that there are various other races and life forms and intelligences in this galaxy. They will most certainly pick up that there is also difference in power scale and technologies. So they'll want to identify that, and they'll also want to study it closer. So undoubtedly they'll start to send in scout ships, probe ships, and possibly even start to invade those unsuspecting ships that are traveling, like rogue traders or Eldar ships and various other things. They'll undoubtedly gain access, they'll commit to boarding actions and so on. And of course, the races that inhabit the Warhammer 40k galaxy won't be aware of what exactly is going on. They'll hear rumours of ships getting boarded by an unidentified alien race. And of course, the Warhammer 40k galaxy is a big place. There are probably undoubtedly numerous unknown alien races still inhabiting the galaxy. The Imperium doesn't actually control all of the galaxy, and as we know, during the Horus Heresy there were a lot of interesting aliens, I shall say, like the Megarachnid and so on, and various other races. But anyways, they'll want to learn about this galaxy as much as possible so that they can best effectively commit their invasion forces instead of going straight in there. At the same time, they may just go straight in there because the Daleks are very arrogant. They do believe they are superior to everyone else. All I'm getting in my head right now is this image of just loads of hundreds of millions of Dalek saucers just flying down to the galaxy, to the unsuspecting Warhammer 40k galaxy. So, of course, that's what would probably happen. They will either scout it out or they will just go straight in for the invasion. So at first, undoubtedly, there would be the same level of confusion and possibly panic that the Imperium had felt during the Beast Arises series when the Orcs just suddenly somehow teleported hundreds of Death Star-sized battle stations to every single Imperial planet. At least I'm aware it was every single Imperial planet almost. The Daleks, however, would not have that same sense of luxury. Will kind of keep their fleet not restricted. Will keep it sort of not in its millions, certainly, but maybe in its hundreds of thousands, possibly. Maybe thinking more along the lines of when the Daleks had obviously built the Crucible, that size of fleet, which was still quite formidable at the same time. There was enough Daleks to slaughter the entire cosmos, as stated by the Doctor. So, anyways, how many saucers appear over a planet? It could be 1 to 3 or 4, containing hundreds of thousands of Daleks, which, of course, is enough in their eyes to slaughter a planet. And, of course, a Dalek ship as well. We have to not forget that they are capable of destroying a planet anyways with its weapons arrays, from planet-destroying missiles to just various other nasty things that the ships have. Initially, I suspect the Imperium would be a bit slow at reacting towards this new threat. They wouldn't be too sure of what's going on. They would hear communication signals about military facilities getting attacked. Now, that's the other thing as well. The Daleks early on during the scouting phase would have assessed all key military targets of the Imperium by undoubtedly harvesting information from people of key importance. They would have came across, possibly rogue traders to start off with, and then they would have ended up boarding bigger strategical ships of importance. The best way to get any sort of information about the military you're going up against is to target a military vessel and then harvest said information from military computers and also military personnel, which the Daleks would of course have no issue with doing anyways. And of course, we must not forget the Daleks have infiltration units as well, people who have been essentially emptied out of their self, like their brain and everything like that, and have become since then a Dalek drone unit. So there is that. Undoubtedly, the Daleks would implant over several months several drone units in various places to learn more about this military force, which is the Imperium, which would probably be what they would consider the biggest potential threat to them. But at the same time, the Imperium is human, so the Daleks would still have that same attitude of they are humans, they are weak, and they are lesser than us. And as for other alien races, well, again, the same sort of mentality would be applied to that. So, of course, the Imperium would hear reports of key military facilities going dark. Mechanicum worlds as well would be a very good target for the Daleks. We already know that the Imperium prizes Mechanicum worlds above all else, and losing a Mechanicum world, especially if it's got weapons technology from a Dark Age, is a significant loss to the Imperium, or even just Titans, for example. So the Daleks would go after these worlds undoubtedly, and these worlds would slowly go dark. Or not slowly, possibly with enough resistance, it would be enough to get a message out saying, this is the new enemy, this is what they look like. And all I could just imagine is this information getting transmitted to Terra and so on, of just a Dalek shouting out, exterminate. Much, of course, like how they appeared in the Stolen Earth episode, where Earth suddenly appears in another system with other planets and an alien race is coming down and approaching, and they have a message for humanity, and that is just a constant exterminate. It is just a exterminate on a loop. But basically, the Imperium, of course, as I was saying, they would struggle dealing with this new invasion force. And of course, the Dalek ships are very fast and don't also rely on the warp either. They rely on something else completely different, which is the time vortex. But we're going to simply sort of take that away from them because we don't want Daleks to be traveling back in time and exterminating the Imperium in a very early stage, getting rid of it essentially. So the minute that the Daleks enter this galaxy, there is a drawback. No time travel is capable. However, they are still able to travel at their speeds that they normally do. And as I know anyways from Doctor Who, Dalek ships travel very quickly even without use of the time vortex. They do travel extremely quickly from system to system.
Now, upon recording, I completely forgot to add about the Necrons, but the Necrons would pose a really big threat, I do feel, to the Dalek race, because at the end of the day, the Daleks have had horrible experiences with dealing with robots or androids as such, so I do feel the Necrons would be the biggest threat in the Warhammer 40k galaxy against the Daleks.
Now then, even though we've taken away the Daleks' time travel, that doesn't make them less deadly. If anything, it makes them more deadlier because they realise there's no time travel, so they can't simply go back and flick on a kill switch on a race if they wish to. They couldn't tamper with any race in the Warhammer 40k galaxy to avert their creation or to change their genetics so early on that they would cease to exist in the current battle state. But, however, the Daleks do have Davros. Now, Davros is the creator of the Dalek race. He is a scientist and he is also a genius as well. His genius is unaccountable. He is brilliant at what he does, and that is developing the Daleks, enhancing them, making them stronger, making them more aggressive, making them better at killing in various ways, and he also then comes up with other ways to kill as well. So, like, for example, he developed the Crucible, which was effectively a Death Star with the capability of breaking down every atom of existence in every single reality and every single parallel, never failing, never faltering, and turning everything into dust. The Daleks would essentially be the only beings of existence. Now, without that, of course, we're not going to give them the Crucible. We don't want the Daleks to be overpowered in this galaxy to the point where if they get tired of fighting or bored of fighting, they could just be like, let's just turn everything into dust in this galaxy. Let's eradicate everything. They could build something like that, but we're not going to give them that because we don't want them to have something that is just ridiculously overpowered anyways. So the warp would be interesting. It would be interesting to think about that kind of battle and how that would play out. The Daleks would potentially try and assert some sort of control over the warp. They would possibly send scouts or probe ships or various other things into the warp. They may even attempt to invade the warp, but then realise how crazy it is. The fact that it is a realm that defies everything that they think they know as well in terms of logic and science. But of course, that is also one of their advantages, is the fact that the Daleks are scientists. They are very scientific, so the warp would potentially not affect the Daleks at all. Or if it slightly did affect them, Davros would then develop something that would nullify the effects of the warp. Now, if we were to skip ahead a few good years into this war, the Imperium has lost a lot of territories. And of course, information as well has been raided from the Imperium, and eventually the Daleks would end up becoming aware of what the Imperium's aware of, which is the Noctilith Towers. They would also then become aware of Cadia, so this is the Great Rift sort of timeline of Warhammer 40k. And of course they would become aware of Cadia falling and the Noctilith Towers there. The Daleks would probably try and create that similar experiment or do their own sciencey stuff and figure out a way to close down the warp completely. And of course, if the warp was gone from the galaxy, that would then, of course, stop chaos, and Chaos Space Marines invading an entire world would potentially be without their demonic allies, which would then screw them over. And then they would be also faced with a vengeful Imperium, but also a Dalek invasion fleet would just suddenly appear over the planet and start to exterminate everyone. Now, Space Marines could pose a threat again. Over the times, Space Marines would learn more about the Daleks, their weaknesses. They would pick up from battles and stuff about what kills them well. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to this, no matter how much technology you have or no matter what weapons you have, the Daleks, no matter how many you kill, the enemy always remains. The Daleks are always going to be a threat and they will always remain there. You could end up killing millions of them and 100 could still remain, and that 100 could then produce into 1,000,000 again, and you're faced with this never-ending war. It's what sent the Time Lords to extinction. It's what allowed the Daleks to get so close to Gallifrey to the point where they were blasting the planet. The Time Lords were a powerful race, I might add. They were the Lords of Time, essentially. And the Dalek War dragged them down, and it was a never-ending war because the Daleks were numerous in number. They were forever making more, and of course they can extract genetic material from a Dalek and produce another dozen Daleks and so on. So therefore, it's one of those wars that I kind of feel that the end of this video, it's definitely going to the Daleks more, just because of how powerful they are and the fact that killing them, it doesn't really bother them as such. Like, they always have an evil plan. They're always brewing a new plan of sorts. And at the end of the day, if you kill one Dalek, you've possibly got 5 more to deal with. And there's only so many weapons that can blow apart a Dalek. But the problem is if you take like a plasma weapon, you shoot it at a Dalek, it takes a little bit of time to cool down and then you can get another couple of shots in at it. At the end of the day, though, you've probably got 10, 20, 30, maybe more Daleks. You've got hundreds flying in the sky as well, above, shooting from a safe range, and so on. And of course, their ships they would end up possibly getting a bit bored and just being like, you know what, let's just blow up this planet. Let's head straight to Terra. We'll sever the link to this vast interstellar empire and watch it crumble. Undoubtedly, that's what would probably happen in this situation, in this scenario, the Daleks invading the Warhammer 40k galaxy. They would probably head straight for Terra as well and eradicate the centre of government and rulership over there. And then that would be essentially, the Imperium would not crumble as such. There would be elements of it still left and resistance would still go on. But for just how long? That is the question. And other races may not be inclined to get themselves involved in this mass murder, this war that would have no end, essentially. Eldar and Dark Eldar may just be more likely to end up retreating and staying safe in their webway portals and so on, because already they face an extinction level threat and they've just hidden themselves now. And it may happen again with the Daleks appearing. But however, how long would it take for the Daleks before the Daleks end up finding the webways as well and they start sending in their soldiers to kill everyone in there? So at the end of the day, it's not going to be an outright victory for the Daleks. It might not even be a victory. It might just be a very long, unending war yet again. But just for how long? Time is not on the Warhammer 40k galaxy side when it comes to the Daleks invading. It wouldn't be long before they would just develop a weapon or a bioweapon of some sort that would wipe out existence. And that's one thing that the Daleks have, is science on their hands, and they're not afraid to develop new technologies and new ways of killing. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'd be very interested in seeing some of you guys' thoughts down in the comment section, whether you think maybe I've been a bit too, just a bit too much on the Dalek side. But at the end of the day, looking up also a good lore video about Daleks. As I did say, they are susceptible to weapons fire as well. So it wouldn't be an outright victory, but it would be a very surprise attack, and then it would just sort of grind into a massive long war. But looking up a good lore video about the Daleks is well worth doing because their history is really interesting, and it's as interesting as Warhammer 40k. It's one of the things that I hold dear to my heart is Warhammer 40k and Doctor Who, and I love both so much, as both are a lifetime hobby for me, a lifetime interest. So with that being said, I have really enjoyed doing this video and I've really enjoyed talking about it, and I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this. Now, I will try and keep videos weekly, however over the holidays it may be not so weekly, possibly, depends really. It depends also on my work as well. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and as I said, please feel free to comment, and also if you wish to see more, subscribe and like and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, I just want to see what other people think really about this debate, and if you found it interesting. Anyways, I hope you all take care, and this is me over and out.